So let me ask you something. Are you left-handed? Maybe your best friend is, or your brother, your mom. It seems pretty normal, right? But have you ever really stopped to think about it? I mean, why isn't everyone just right-handed? It's one of those things we see every day but don't really question. Well, today we're going to question it. Let's dive into this amazing evolutionary puzzle. So the number is about 10%. Roughly 1 in every 10 people on the planet is a lefty. And you might think, okay, 10%, that's not huge. But here's the crazy part. It's not some random fluke. That number, that 10%, has been incredibly stable throughout human history. It's this consistent minority that has had scientists scratching their heads for decades. Okay, so here's where we get to the real mystery, the heart of the puzzle. Think about it. Evolution, natural selection, it's all about efficiency. If a trait has any kind of disadvantage, even a tiny one, you'd expect it to slowly disappear over thousands and thousands of years. So the big question is, why are there still lefties? Why haven't they just vanished? That's exactly what we're going to unpack. And I want to be super clear here. This is not some modern thing. This isn't a new quirk. No, left-handedness is ancient. It's been part of the human story for as long as there's been a human story. It's literally woven into our fabric as a species. And how do we know this? Well, the evidence is pretty amazing, and it goes way, way back. Archaeologists have found clues just about everywhere they've looked. We're talking about million-year-old hand axes that show how they were held, mostly by right-handers. We're talking about Neanderthal skeletons, even the stencils of hands on cave walls from tens of thousands of years ago. And the pattern is always the same. Most people were righties, but you always find that small, stubborn group of lefties hanging around. It never goes away. All right, so if we know it's been around forever, the next logical question is why? Where does it even come from? Is it something you're born with, something in your genes, or is it something from your environment? Yep, it's the classic nature versus nurture showdown, but this time we're talking about which hand you write with. Okay, so the first and most obvious clue is that, it seems to run in families. If you've got lefty parents, your chances of being a lefty go up. Seems simple enough, right? Case closed, it's genetic. Well, not so fast. The real story is way more complicated and honestly way more interesting than that. All right, check out these numbers, because this is where it gets really weird. 2 right-handed parents, you've got about a 9.5% chance of having a lefty kid. Makes sense. 1 lefty parent, the odds go up. Again, makes sense. But look at that last line. This is the kicker. 2 left-handed parents get together, and the chance of them having a left-handed kid is only around 35%. Think about that. It's more likely they'll have a right-handed child. That's just wow. And that one fact tells us everything. There is no way genetics is the whole story here. So what's really going on? Well, the truth is, it's a super complex mix of things. Sure, there's a genetic component. Twin studies and all that show it's partly inherited. Maybe somewhere between 1/4 and 2/3 of the picture is genetics. But then you've got all these other things, these environmental factors that pile on. We're talking about hormones in the womb before you're even born, stress during development, and of course, cultural pressure. Teachers or parents trying to force kids to write with the right hand. It's a whole messy recipe. Okay, so let's circle back to that big evolutionary question we started with. If a trait like this sticks around but only in a minority of people, evolution tells us there has to be a reason. It suggests there must be some kind of downside, some kind of cost or price you pay for being different. The scientists whose work we're looking at today said it perfectly. They basically said, listen, the simple fact that left-handedness is rare is a giant clue. It tells you there must be some evolutionary costs associated with it. Biology just doesn't keep things around at low levels for no reason. There's always a trade-off. So what kind of costs are we talking about? Well, scientists have pointed to a few possibilities. For one, there's the simple fact that our world is designed for right-handed people. I mean, think about scissors, can openers, even circular saws. They can be downright dangerous for a lefty. That means a higher risk of accidents. And then there are some statistical links, and I should say some of these are still debated, but there are links to certain health issues or things like a slightly higher rate of low birth weight. From a cold, hard evolutionary standpoint, all of these things add up on the cost side of the ledger. Okay, so if you've got all these costs pushing the number of lefties down, there has to be something else, something powerful. There must be a benefit, an advantage, so good that it pushes right back, keeping lefties in the game. So what could possibly be so important that it makes being a lefty evolutionarily worth it? Where do we find this secret weapon, this surprise advantage? Well, let's look at where lefties don't just exist, but where they dominate, where they're way more common than that 10% we see in the general population. Think about it. Boxing, fencing, baseball pitchers, top-level tennis players, cricket bowlers. What's the common thread here? What links all of these things together? You seeing it yet? I mean, just look at that list again. What's the one thing they all have in common? It's combat. It's direct, face-to-face, one-on-one competition where you're trying to outsmart your opponent. And this brings us to what is now the leading theory, and it's called the fighting hypothesis. Now, the fancy scientific term for it is negative frequency-dependent selection. It sounds like a mouthful, I know, but the idea is actually super simple. A trait becomes more of an advantage the rarer it is. Just imagine you're a fighter. Almost everyone you ever fight is right-handed. All your training, all your instincts are built around fighting a righty. Then one day, you come up against a lefty, a southpaw. Suddenly, everything is backward. The punches come from weird angles, their guard is in a different place, you're totally thrown off. Their rarity is their weapon. It's a massive surprise advantage. So there you have it. We've got both sides of the coin now. On the one hand, you have the costs. On the other, you have this incredibly powerful benefit that only works when you're in the minority. What you're looking at is a perfect evolutionary balancing act. Picture a set of scales, or maybe a game of tug of war. On one side, pulling the numbers down, you have all those costs we talked about. The slightly higher health risks, the dangers of living in a raties world. But on the other side, pulling just as hard to keep the numbers up, you have the fighting advantage. That amazing strategic benefit in one-on-one combat that only exists because lefties are rare. These two forces pull against each other, and they settle into a balance, at right around 10%. And what this all means is something pretty profound, actually. Left-handedness isn't some kind of mistake. It's not a bug in the human code. It's not a disorder. It's a strategy. A totally valid alternative strategy that's been kept alive in our species by this delicate evolutionary balancing act for millennia. But this all leads to one last, really fascinating thought. Okay, so this fighting advantage was obviously a huge deal for our ancient ancestors. But what about now? In our modern world where, let's be honest, most of us aren't getting into life or death physical combat every day, has the main evolutionary benefit for being a lefty starting to fade away? Is that evolutionary scale slowly starting to tip in one direction? And if it is, what does that mean for the future of left-handers? Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it?